Everyone, we'll get started shortly. Well, welcome everyone to SAMPS webinar series. In today's webinar, Talent in Transition, Hiring and Getting Hired in the Life Sciences. My name is Mark Haza. I'm a board member of SAMPS, and I'll be moderating today's panel discussion. We will be recording the session and posting it afterwards on the SAMPS website. Attendees' microphones are disabled. If you have any questions along the way, please use the Q&A button to type your question, and we'll get to those as we go along. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit more about SAMPS if you're not familiar with us. SAMPS, or Sales and Marketing Professionals in Science, was founded in 2012 as a professional development and networking organization for sales and marketing professionals in the life sciences and applied research. To find out more and to join for free, visit our website at samps.org. Now let's get started. In this webinar, we're going to talk about the challenges of hiring and getting hired in the life sciences with a team of panelists spanning different functions in the process. But first, let's talk about the fundamental issues today facing the job market. In a 2023 survey by Korn Ferry, they found that 67% of companies claim lack of talent for the main reason of not filling their open positions. 75% of resumes are rejected by an applicant tracking system. 54% of employers have rejected applicants based on their social media profiles. And 61% of job seekers describe online searching as both time-consuming and frustrating. In the US, the average job takes about 5 months to fill. Traditionally, hiring managers have been concerned with attracting the right candidates and get frustrated with the long hiring process, uncompetitive pay to find the right candidates, and branding of their organizations, as well as balancing budget constraints. The job seeker, on the other hand, is facing high competition for jobs, the long application process, lack of feedback from hiring managers, a perceived gap in their skill sets, relentless networking, and of course, uncertainty in the market, specifically in election years. Now, with the advent of AI tools, we introduce a new challenge. Job seekers can easily apply for more open positions using tools like ChatGPT and others to quickly write cover letters and create and edit resumes. This in turn creates more candidates for the hiring manager to screen, so they begin to rely on algorithms to pre-screen applicants. This potentially causes good applicants to be overlooked. So this is what we'd like to discuss today with our panel. How can both job seekers and hiring managers succeed in an AI-driven job market? But before we meet our panel, I'd like to ask you a few questions so our panel can understand today's audience. Are you currently looking for a job, or are you currently hiring? What stage are you at in your career? An early stage, less than 5 years, middle of your career, 5 to 15 years, or later in your career, greater than 15 years? And do you use any AI tools in your job process today, either as a hiring manager or as a job seeker? Adam is going to execute the poll while we get to meet today's panel. Let's meet our panel. I'll let each of you introduce yourselves. Lauren, let's get started with you.
Hi, I'm Lauren Charbonneau. I am a resume writer and a coach. And one of my specialties is helping people close the gap between what the employer is looking for and what is on the paper about you, particularly with folks who have complex backgrounds, more unique backgrounds, maybe a non-traditional education, a non-traditional career path. So really finding that story and putting that on the page in a way that is clear and apparent to recruiters and hiring managers, but also equipping folks with the ability to talk about that story in a way that is concise and convincing, because that can be a challenge when you are job searching is to, people say, tell me about yourself. And that can be, it's such a challenge, right? To understand what am I supposed to say, right? So really working to understand what your personal brand is, so to speak, in the hiring process. And then also, excited to be here on this particular webinar because there are really strategic ways that folks can understand applicant tracking systems and use keyword optimization and artificial intelligence to help their resume get through those initial technical gatekeepers. So it's not, the point at which it arrives in the hands of a human now in the modern world is much further along in the process than it used to be. It used to be that your resume would come out of an envelope and a person would look at it, and it doesn't work that way anymore. And so really working with folks to understand functionally how the document needs to be laid out, what it needs to have in it, how much is keywords, how much is story, what's the balance there, so that people can get through those three audiences, right? The technical gatekeepers, and then the recruiters and the hiring managers, so that you can arrive in a place where you're actually having an interview and talking about your qualifications. So I'm based in Boston, and I've been in practice for about 6 years. And so I am just excited to be here, excited to be contributing to such an important field, and looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Don.
Mark, thanks. And Lauren, thanks for that introduction as well. That's very important material you just covered. I'm Don Alexander, and I'm President and Managing Director of GeneCoda Executive Search. We are a boutique life sciences executive search firm that focuses on principally senior level positions within the life sciences sector, which we define as biopharmaceutical, medical technology, diagnostics, and related tools and services providers that more or less empower the industry. And so I've been at this, I guess, for about 20 years, and we've seen a lot of different looks, a lot of different clients that we've served during that time frame, quite a few what I would call innovator companies. So a lot of small to mid-sized companies developing really what I would call next generation technologies. And we're just really excited to be here with the panel today and discussing this really important topic.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Adam, let me see if we can see the poll results. There we go. So it looks like we got almost half of our people are in the job searching mode, and it looks like they're about in the middle of their career. Let's see, AI tools. We got about half the people use, let's see, a little less than half of people using tools. So it'd be interesting for I think our audience today to find out, what tools could help them along the way from both sides. And maybe, the people that are in the middle or later stages in their career, how is that different from somebody that's just new to the job market and maybe just out of school? So good, that'll give us some context for the further discussions today. So great, thank you. Well, let's get to chat now with our panelists. Oops, I'm going too fast. With our panelists I'm having a little technical difficulty here. So, okay, there we go. Sorry, I want to give our panelists a bigger window so we can see them a little better when we talk with them. So, this first question I have for the both of you, is about how has AI transformed the recruiting process, and what can we do to manage that impact, right? So let's start with you, Don, and see what that means from your perspective.
Yeah, it's a really great question, Mark. And there are, as I was reflecting on this thought pattern, I guess there's the good sides, I suppose, to AI and maybe the not so good sides. And I suspect we'll cover a bit of both. And I do want to provide a little bit of a disclaimer that although I've used ChatGPT and other AI technologies, I don't really consider myself an expert in those so much as an expert in recruiting. So I'll be focusing, of course, my answer around that framework. But that said, I think the technologies that are out there today, anyway, they really help to streamline the candidate sourcing and screening process. They give you or offer data-driven insights and predictive analytics. LinkedIn has some of these tools and some of their pay-for features like LinkedIn Recruiter, for example. And they can help recruiters identify top talent, therefore, a little more, I guess, efficiently. So some of the ways they might do that might be to look at how long someone's been in a current position, for example, could be a biomarker that might be used or something like that. But this not only saves time, but it also enhances the accuracy, really, of candidate assessments. So that's on the plus side. I think AI-driven platforms also can personalize the candidate experience by tailoring interactions that are based on individual preferences and behaviors. So from personalized job recommendations to things like automated interviewing or interview scheduling, rather, candidates can benefit from a seamless and really an engaging recruitment journey. Overall, I would say automation in recruitment accelerates the process. It handles repetitive tasks like resume parsing or interview scheduling that we mentioned. And it allows, therefore, recruiters, whether internal or external recruiters, to really focus on more strategic initiatives and relationship building. AI systems continuously learn and adapt through their models, so that helps to optimize candidate matching and refines recruitment strategies to really meet evolving industry trends and preferences. That said, I don't consider it a panacea, and I'd like to offer up a very specific instance that didn't involve quote unquote AI. Lauren can probably comment on this, how frequently this occurs, but this is a very specific instance a few years ago where I was involved in recruiting a fairly senior level person with a background in DMPK, drug metabolism, and pharmacokinetics. Now, the person that I was dealing with at the client was a fairly junior level recruiter. And I didn't catch this, but on one of the applicant's resumes, he did not include a software that is commonly used in that kind of modeling that's made. It's called Win Non-Lin for those that know it, but he didn't actually include that keyword on his resume. But he had worked at large companies like GSK, and also, I guess, in one sense, I kind of assumed that he would have used that maybe, but I didn't specifically see that. And that was a requirement for the role. Now, fortunately, in this case, I was able to go back to him and communicate that we needed to include when online, first validated that he had in fact used it, which he had many of the modules. And we went back and included that data in the resume. So that candidate wound up interviewing with that client. But I think it's a really good example of how things can evolve if you don't use the correct terminology and with respect to, and in that case, it was a human to human interaction versus anything to do with AI, really. I also want to point out that there's an article I read recently that I think really bears mentioning in the context of all of this. And I wasn't aware of this, and I hope that it helps people think about not only their search, but I guess broader applications in life. And this was an article by a cybersecurity expert named Mark Montgomery. And the article was concerning consumer-oriented chatbots, of which many, I think, that are probably involved in recruiting people are used. And the article really highlights a growing concern over the misuse of large language models like ChatGPT and the chatbots by employees, with a significant number disclosing sensitive information to AI tools leading to potential data breaches and intellectual property theft. So it goes on to say that a recent survey by the U.S. National Cybersecurity Alliance found that younger workers are more likely to share confidential work data with these bots that pose severe cybersecurity risks. So I think that construct is kind of interesting to think about because personally, I had assumed that all data that I was putting into ChatGPT and these other bots, if you will, was my own. But buyer beware on what you put into those systems to begin with.
Right. Thanks,
So,
Don. I mean, that angle on the security aspect of using these tools, I think, is really important, and we'll see more of that as we go forward. I know you and I talked about it a little bit the other night when we saw each other at an event, and I think companies really have to realize, how they're using these things, and individuals themselves too, as they're doing it. What are you putting in there about yourself that really may not you may not want to be out there in the open market? Lauren, what's your perspective on how AI has transformed the recruiting process, and how can we manage this impact?
It's a great question. And I think that, from the resume writing and job seeker side, there is, I want to start with what Dawn was saying about keywords and how important that piece of the puzzle can be for folks. And that I think what AI has done on the side for job seekers, are you actually, I want to clarify the question and make sure I'm answering the right question. Are you speaking specifically on the recruiter side, or do you want me to answer from the perspective of the job seeker?
No, just the recruitment in general, both sides, whether you're a recruiter or you're a job seeker into the
Yeah.
recruitment process of
Okay,
finding
great.
a job.
Yeah.
Yes,
So on the job seeker side of the recruitment process, I think what we're seeing is this, it has been made very easy to apply for jobs, almost dangerously so. And I think this is where I see job seekers have a tougher time. Is there is this temptation, because job seeking is understandably exhausting. It's, you're tailoring your resume and you're writing a cover letter, and there are these easy apply buttons, or every platform has, I think, its own form of like easy apply. Just click here, upload your resume, go go go, and you can apply for 100 jobs in a day, or some outlandish number, more than you would have been able to in the past. And so what I see candidates doing is they take just the same resume and they send it to everyone. And so so it's made it easier in that sense. But unfortunately, if you're taking the same one and sending it to every single job, you may be missing an opportunity to tailor it to the requirements of a particular role in a way that would get you through the door. So you're kind of amplifying a poor strategy in the first place, right? And just hitting easy apply everywhere. And so what AI, and opposite of Dawn, I'm actually a heavy user of AI. I don't use it ever to write client work. I would never put my own confidential data or any clients in it. But what it can do amazingly well is, and this is, I think, an underused benefit of it. So if you're a job seeker, take notes. You go to your favorite chat platform, whichever one you like using, put the job description in and ask it to tell you, what are the 5 most important themes for this job? What are the 20 most important applicant tracking system keywords that should be on a resume? I want to be a competitive applicant. You don't have to put anything about yourself into that chat. You just give it the job description and ask it those questions. It will feed that information back to you. You take 10 minutes, update the resume, make sure that, those keywords are in there. And then, at the beginning of your search, when you're creating your resume in the first place, I would not have a chat bot write it for you. I would definitely write it yourself, but get 5 job descriptions for the roles that you want to apply for. Make sure they're in the same family, right? Marketing or sales, that's what we're all doing here. But put 5 in and say, please read these 5 job descriptions. Tell me what the common themes are that I need to highlight, right? And at the top of your resume, make sure that those themes are covered in highlights, right? Increase sales this much. They want to know that you can work with cross-functional colleagues. Mention a time you did that, right? So you can use this as a tool to actually help you be more strategic and more targeted, and a lot less tired, right? In a way that's really efficient. You don't have to go through every job description, highlight and underline. I used to teach clients to do that, and it's really not necessary anymore because these tools are great at doing that for you. So, so I think it's to recap, what I'm saying here about how it's impacted it. I think on the job seeker side, it's made it it's made it easier to apply, but I think it's also made it temptingly easy to use a strategy that's not quite effective, right? And that there's a way to be effective, but you have to know, it's not that easy apply button. It's using the chat bot to help you tailor it, and then you just upload it, take that few extra minutes, and load it yourself, instead of kind of doing the spammy approach of just, hitting all the buttons. So
Right.
hope that made sense.
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question on keywords for
Yeah.
that. There used to be a strategy years ago, I'm going to date myself on this now, but you used to be able to use white text that would not show on a resume, and you would load it up with every possible keyword so you get caught by the applicant tracking systems, but it never muddied up your resume because it was never visible, but it was there for the bots to see, or whatever they were called at the time, the machine learning. But yet it wouldn't, add stuff to your resume. Do those kinds of strategies still work, or those are long gone now because
No, those are long gone, and I'm so glad you asked that. So I think those worked better before, and again, I'm gonna clarify that I got into this field in the later part of the last decade. My understanding of when that worked well was when people would take a resume out of an envelope and put it in a scanner, like an actual physical scanner, and the scanner would see the keywords, but it wouldn't necessarily the human wouldn't, right? Now, what happens now when you put a resume in an applicant tracking system, it will pull all of the text off of it, regardless of what color it is. It strips out color, it strips out boxes, lines, formatting, and it just pulls in the text. So when you do that, and then you have the hiring manager or the recruiter looks at what the ATS pulled off the resume, and they see, Mark Hosa, and then, sales, marketing, and they see all these keywords, and
with a
it's very
dictionary behind it.
obvious that you keyword stuffed, and it makes you look not great, right?
Right.
So, I wouldn't do that. It takes just as much, maybe not just as much time, but not that much more time to just have a keyword bank, have it be about 3 lines, and you swap out those keywords for every role you apply to. Use the chat bot to help you know which ones to use for a given job description. And then if you make sure that your resume is written in the first place with the right language, talking about sales, talking about marketing, using the right phrases, you will be okay.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for we had some people that have been later into their career, so they may have used some of those techniques before, and that's good to know that to avoid those today. So
Yeah, I would definitely avoid that. Yeah, thanks for asking that.
So the next question is for either of you to answer, whoever wants to go first. And but so how do you see the life science job market evolving now with some of these AI tools, and what's AI's going to be influence on recruitment now, and what's with your crystal ball, so to speak, how do we think things are going to continue to change with AI? Because it's relatively new. It's really 2-3 years old, really, that anything is really getting used, and then only in the past year or so, people have really, heard about AI, with ChatGPT really being the one that brought it to the surface. So whoever wants to take that first.
I'll be glad to chime in on that, Mark. I think, and I'd be interested to hear Lauren's perspective. I mean, from my point of view, I think the systems, because both parties, the employer and the employee, have access to these systems, they're going to have to kind of learn to cope with or deal with, I guess, these bots, because, and the idea is that can flood the application process more easily than ever before. So I think you have to think about bottlenecks. I was thinking what might be analogous to both sides having the tools, and the the concept of mutually assured destruction and principles of nuclear war kind of came to mind, because it leads me to believe that employers and employees may have to increasingly rely on job search methods that are outside the scope of job posts in a general sense in the future. And there are other reasons that are behind that statement as well. But one of them is, if you have too many applicants on the one side, too many can lead to informational overload, and that's not productive or a good thing, if you will. What is a challenge, I think, with that though, is that perhaps not the right or the most qualified applicants might be getting through that bigger construct. So I think in some sense, it becomes harder to stand out in a larger applicant pool without human intervention. And then if there is a human, basically a human review of things, the use of general AI with little other thought may turn off interviewers. We've been asked to participate in a panel with a very large federal scientific agency. And they asked us, the panelists in this case, to touch on the use of AI. And I wrote the lead moderator back and said, well, what have you seen so far? And one of this job search group that basically trains PhDs and postdocs to go into their first industry position, the question was, detail what concrete steps or activities you've taken in your job search in the past 2 months. And the task was to evaluate skills and interests, identify my skills, strengths, and interests, and determine which are most relevant to industry roles. The answers that came back, a number were obviously AI generated. Things like tailor the resume, create a resume that highlights industry relevant skills, accomplishments, and experiences, focus on practical achievements and competencies. That's what someone actually wrote. If you think about that for a second, that doesn't work. That tells me little to nothing about that person. And she went on to say that the leader of this group went on to say that there were 4 different applications out of 179 that had almost the exact same, response to this question. They were all structured in bulleted lists like this, very similar, not identical phrasing of the words, and used present tense instead of past tense. So they suspected the people in this working group all use the same AI platform to write the response because it was a very recognizable format. So her question to us as panelists is going to be, how do we cope with that or contend to that? Does that reflect poorly on an applicant? And I would say most assuredly so, in my experience. So again, very large federal agency that had kind of given us some concrete examples of what they'd seen from their PhD postdoc students.
Interesting. Lauren, anything to add to that from your perspective on how we see things? Well, maybe examples of from the job seeker perspective. It's like the impacts of AI and even other tools and how this might evolve potentially from the job seeker's side to stay ahead of what maybe is going on internally, so that things like Don just said won't happen, right? And I think you mentioned a few things already. It's use the tools, but still write it yourself, right?
Yes.
Other things,
Yes.
as well that can go along those lines. Any thoughts on any of those?
I think it goes back to the same thing, understanding these tools. I think you can be best positioned to stay ahead of what's going on. And you don't, by no means do you need to be an expert, but you do need to understand, I think, what, there are a lot of promises made about AI can do this, AI can do that. AI can in fact not do certain things very well at all, right? If you asked it to write your resume, again, it would do a terrible job. I've experimented with it. Again, not with clients, but just out of curiosity, like let me ask you to write this about me, and it generic bullets, right? It sounds the same. It's there's too many words. It's just too wordy and flowery and just it's awful. Don't do that, right? So, but again, when you understand, what these large language models can do well, right? That they can look for patterns. They can look at lists and, distill this or distill that, or look at this applicant. And, you understand how these technologies are going to be used in the hiring process. Then you can understand what you need to do to stand out and some of that is actually going to be outside of getting behind a screen, networking, making sure that you know people, making sure that you have a pulse on what's going on in your industry. That's going to be important as well. But I think, yeah, you can stay a step ahead by understanding what they can do and what they can't do. And then also not going for the shiny tool, right? I've seen AI powered resume builders. I haven't personally experimented with them. Actually, no, I experimented with one. Again, didn't do a great job, right? So I would say, if you're going to use any sort of like resume tool, also get yourself a resume book. There are great books that I own. I have them on my shelf, right? There's, Modernize Your Resume, Resumes for Dummies. These are excellent publications that really, we professionals use these to train ourselves, and, they're full of best practices. So if you're going to use an AI to help you, train yourself, get yourself at least one book, and make sure that you understand what a really good resume looks like so that you can check what the AI gives you and make sure that it's actually something good. I think there's a lot of people putting blind faith in sort of a new technology without taking some of it with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of folks just kind of jumping on this bandwagon, selling AI powered things that are maybe not great, right? And so I think, for myself, like I said, I just use a plain chatbot. I don't use any specialized tools I just ask it questions and it gives me answers, right? And I don't invest in anything more fancy than that, because that's really all you need. If that makes sense.
That actually brings up an interesting question. So, should you list as a skill on your resume that you're AI savvy or something like that, even if you're not in the software field and you're in something else? Is that a skill set that companies maybe are looking for now, that you know how to use these tools for good and bad, maybe the good part but not the bad part, right? And you know how to use them productively. Is that something that we'll see, we should see on resumes of people that have embraced these technologies, because they are going to be here going forward, and
Yeah,
people that are familiar with it, maybe that gives them an edge? Or is that something that could be looked at maybe negative because, oh, this guy knows it, and maybe you don't put it on the resume and it comes up later because was everything they're saying to me AI driven?
Yeah, I think we're at the stage where it's new enough and people are still suspicious of it, that there's a tremendous amount of suspicion, I think, about AI. I think I'm not, I think I'm in the minority in how much I've explored and gone to workshops and used it. I think that you run a risk of folks assuming that perhaps you're going to use AI for things that you should be doing with your own brain in the job. And I wouldn't run the risk of confusing anybody.
Yeah.
Unless the role, again, and I'll bring it back to just, the fact that really you want to speak to the job description as closely as you can, right? So if the job description says they want you to be familiar with AI tools, absolutely put it on there. If that's not required, it may not be seen as a value add. And so I would leave it off.
That's good. Good to know.
Yeah, and I would just echo what Lauren said in preparation for this session. It dawned on me that some companies are now writing statements on the use of AI in the interview process, and the article cited Canva. A lot of us are familiar with Canva, the marketing tool, if you will. And to be fair, Canva is really a company that deploys AI as part of its infrastructure, if you will. So it's not, Mark, to your question about, it's not really asking if you're an AI expert or anything like that. But their statement to me about the use of it was really interesting, and I think echoes Lauren's comments. The part of the iterative statement that I found the most interesting was, if you've used AI, we'll want to understand how you used it and how you built on it and what it produced. What's really important to us is that you're able to demonstrate your own ideas and thinking, particularly during our interview and Canva challenge process, which is basically a case study presentation. Please note that if you apply for an engineering opportunity, you'll need to turn off any AI tools such as GitHub Copilot during the interview. So I think it's just that the way that, and that's a major company that has AI at its heart, that's telling you as an applicant exactly what we expect of you and what we don't expect of you during the interview process. So
That's interesting. So let's move off the AI subject a little bit, and let's see about, what do you think the most pressing challenges are for employers and job seekers outside of AI for life sciences today, and how can we address those two? If we put AI aside now, just the other things that are dealing with in the industry and stuff that are going on right now, what's the most, what are some of maybe the most pressing things people should be aware of today in the marketplace outside of AI?
so you mean in terms of like the macro market itself?
Yeah, just the market maybe, and maybe some trends and some things like that. I know, Don, you may have you've done some surveys and some things along those lines as well too. Maybe that there's something to share here where things are moving or going right now for those of us, including myself, that are looking for jobs right now.
Yeah, we publish a quarterly report that goes to this, that measures the ads posted across the United States in the life sciences sector. And we have seen a downturn over probably the last 9 to 12 months. We do believe that things are going to start to strengthen a little bit in Q3. We don't have the data quite yet for that report, but we do believe that things will start to get a bit better. And part of this, I think, is underscored by the venture rounds, a slight reduction in interest rates. We talked about, the presidential election kind of maybe beyond that, so people have more sure knowledge of directionality. But I think that 2025 is going to start to be a better year. As we all know, these things tend to move in cycles. And if you've had a difficult time in job search, I would say over the past 9 to 12 months, it's not you. A number of companies in the industry have laid people off, quite frankly. So that has been a struggle, but we are seeing signs that that's starting to bottom out at this point, which is very good news for job seekers. And I would add that there's still quite a bit of demand for certain types of skill sets in the industry as well. AI, I suppose, and machine learning being some of them, because now you're seeing, these technologies applied to, in particular, to drug discovery and development efforts, right? We've got a client who is repurposing small molecule drugs that have failed in the clinic by using artificial intelligence and machine learning, hoping to rapidly expedite the development curve, possibly changing, a chemical structure, tweaking it, and putting it right back up and through to the clinic with hopeful outcomes. So the speed at which these technologies are developing is so interesting to me. It's really hard to keep track of them all. I mean, I don't even try, but Lauren has experimented, it sounds like, with far more than I have, but there's so many of these different tools out there. One I found in preparation for this was a tool called Lazy Apply, which I just kind of laughed at the name. Lauren said it was using Easy Apply or the Easy Apply button. I found an actual tool or a bot that, might flood the application process, and it's called Lazy Apply, and I just had to laugh at that when I saw it. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the market, if you
It
will.
sounds like a lot like what they had when the Common App came out for those of us who had kids applying for colleges and stuff. That also changed the whole market as something that's very similar, because it made it much easier for kids to apply to a lot more colleges. And then again, it created a problem for the colleges because they had extremely a lot more candidates to go through, and all of their acceptance rates dropped because the pools just got so big. So we're kind of in that same kind of area again too. So anyway. Let's take some questions now from the audience. Let's see what we have here. So there was some claim, this question came in on the Q&A. Some claim that a lot of the job market is quote unquote invisible, and that a good amount of jobs are often created for good candidates. So what's your take on applying for jobs that are beyond advertised? Now, I guess they want to know, how do you get your foot in the door? So, for those jobs that maybe aren't advertised.
I'll take that one
Yeah.
for starters. I think that you know people, right? I mean, that's if you to have a job created for you, someone has to know who you are and what you can do. And so that helps to have relationships, build relationships within your company that you work for, right? Keep in touch with those people after you leave, have coffee, have lunch, have, keep a pulse on what's going on with various companies, what people are doing. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know where you're thriving, what's challenging in your organization, and what you maybe wish was different, and what a different kind of work that you wish you were doing, right? And this is what helps folks keep you top of mind. I know we have a lot more mid to late career people here than early career people, and it's much easier to do that in your mid to late career because you have you've done more, right? You've done more, more people, you've probably been in more organizations. And so, have genuine relationships with people, not just transactional, like I'm going to message everybody on LinkedIn when I'm looking for a job, but between the phases that you're looking for a job, invest in those relationships, and you will be able to be more aware of what's going on and what might be available, what might be created for you.
So really always be networking.
Yeah,
Not just when you're looking
always
for a
be
job.
networking, but not in a transactional way. Like
Right.
a network really in just a genuine human connection kind of way. Always be, and I wouldn't even, I think networking freaks people out. I don't think that word is always helpful. I would say always be relating, like always be connecting with people, relating to them, having relationships, investing in those relationships, asking how people are doing. How is your work going? Would love to catch up, have those organic relationships established and continue to water them, and they will grow, and then you will have something to draw on when you're looking.
Great.
So more of a long game strategy, and maybe that's not what folks were looking for, but it really is the way.
Absolutely. We have another question here too, and they want to know, for someone who's looking for a job, how much does developing a personal brand help with getting hired? And for job hirers, how much does a candidate's personal brand influence decisions? So I guess what they're asking here is, uh, should you be developing your personal brand on, let's say, LinkedIn, where you're posting and commenting on things, and how much of that is really useful for getting a job? I mean, one of the statistics we saw early on, that a lot of employers will disregard people based on their social media profiles, and that may or may not be in life sciences, but it might be more of what people are putting on TikTok and some of those things that say, this person's not aligned with our corporate culture or something like that. And so there's the transparent things you might be saying about yourself and just your actions on your profiles. Anyone have any comments on that, on how their brand affects?
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, excuse me, branding, I think about branding both internally and externally. Branding, we often recommend people have an internal marketing document that's not necessarily for public consumption. And I can go into that in a little more detail if you'd like, but excuse me, the external aspect, Mark, is kind of what I think you're referring to. And I think it's really important to maintain a presence on LinkedIn in particular, as the biggest job site in the world with something like 800 million users now. And to comment purposefully on people's posts. People do see those things in their feed. And so, having obviously the professional photo, the background image itself. I think a lot of people don't even recognize that uh, in LinkedIn messaging and some of the applications, there's a character's limits on how much, for instance, somebody actually sees without clicking on, the next, clicking on, say, the message to actually open it up or blow it up. And I always just try to think about it from the standpoint, are you getting the next click? Because that may be the goal, is to get the next click to lead someone down the pathway to where they do reach out and contact you, whether it's a recruiter, hiring manager, whatever the case may be. Are you getting the next click? So that's one way to think about it.
Yeah, great.
I'd love to jump on that as well.
Sure.
I like that phrasing, Dawn, of are you getting the next click? And I agree, LinkedIn can be really supportive for a personal branding. And I won't repeat what Don said because it's true. I would say the same thing. But what I will add to that is that a personal brand also, you can use personal branding in your resume. And I think that what, and this is what I often help folks do, is that your personal brand really is how you show up at work and in the world. And so to think of it less as, like what's your brand in this sort of commercial way, but who are you? Are you the person who looks at the data and is able to see patterns in the numbers when maybe other people miss it? Or are you the person who can get folks at the table and get them to come to consensus when they might be unlikely to do so? So what is it about you that makes you uniquely valuable to an organization? So invest some time in understanding that about yourself, and then make sure that your resume says those things, right? And if you're not sure where to put that on your resume, like I said earlier, grab a resume writing book from the library and leaf through it, and you'll see examples of resumes that have a really clear personal brand. There'll be, a subhead under the headline. There'll be some highlights, right, that show a certain theme about the person, and you can do that, and that is a great way to, once your resume is through these gatekeepers, these AI powered ATS systems, and it's on someone's desk, it will stand out more than a resume that's just simply a list of tasks or a list of kind of sales numbers over time, really highlighting that who is doing this work.
Yeah, no, that's great. We have another question here that it says that my company is currently hiring, but we're not getting many applicants, and the ones that we are getting aren't qualified and clearly haven't read the job description. With a large amount of job seekers in the market, it seems that we may be doing something wrong with our postings. Do you have any quick tips on where to post and how to improve our postings, or generally how to improve our candidate quality? So I guess the question there would come, it might depend on the level in which you're looking for your the right person to fit that job. I mean, maybe Don, you can comment on this, the value of a recruiter in some of those cases when you're not getting, your job posts aren't working. But if you're looking for very specific people, maybe it is time to talk to a recruiter.
Well, it could be. It depends. Yeah, I mean, on the level, the demand, supply and demand within any given market segment that can have a lot of codependency on the number of applicants. Again, I go back to lazy apply. I think, if a state says you got to apply if you're unemployed and have to apply to 2 jobs per week to keep the unemployment going, is someone sending you a resume that's not qualified? Kind of, I mean, there may be a motivation behind that too, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm assuming that the also maybe the person who's asking or posing the question may not have an ATS that has what's called knockout questions. A lot of ATSs are built with these questions, but you could probably do this in an automated fashion, and that would be to issue a couple of what I'm going to call challenge questions back to every single applicant that helps to stratify their experience, perhaps in a specific area. I might also revisit the job description itself. Is the job description clear about the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that the company is seeking? I mean, really clarify that. And so there could be a variety or a litany of reasons why why they're not getting qualified applicants. And it's really important to understand all of those different areas and try to obviously work towards a better outcome. So.
I have an example to share here as well too, is when I was a hiring manager back at a large pharmaceutical company early on in my career. I had to manually look at resumes, go to HR, pull the papers and go through them. And it was surprising how many people will just apply to any job just to get their resume in the system. The person one of the resumes that I still remember to this day is the person had no scientific expertise. She was a hand model and had some hairdressing experience. I don't know what job she was looking for at the pharmaceutical company, but I'm sure there was one for her at some point there. She just wanted to get her resume visible someplace. So I think there's still a lot of that going on these days. If I can get in the, how do I get in the system? Well, I'll just apply to this job, and maybe it will go into the database. And I don't know how long they keep them anymore either. I think they're probably very, job opening specific. And unless you're working with somebody who has a need for a lot of turnover, they're probably not hanging on to them. It's almost like in marketing today, an email is only good in your database for a certain period of time. And you might as well, if it's been in there longer than that, you might as well get rid of it because it's probably changed since then. So probably similar along those lines. But yeah, one last question is a little bit now also maybe on the old school. Is it still beneficial to take a hard copy of your resume to a company in this day and age?
It certainly can't hurt you. Even
Yeah,
if you don't need it, it makes you look prepared,
I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
And that brings another question to me too, is in my searching and applying for positions recently, I've noticed there's a lot of application systems where you can't even upload a resume or a cover letter. It will just take your profile or something, or you fill some things out. They don't even hold a PDF version of anything, and there's no place to add any extra information other than filling out some of the experience questions that you can put in. So, again, no one's really looking there, right? It's all going to be automated type of, and they want it in their format. So,
yeah.
And that's why, Mark and Lauren, in my mind, that's why it's so important. Lauren talked about networking earlier and really building genuine relationships over time. That's so important. It's really a lot of times that human to human interaction and how to, since you can't upload the PDF or a cover letter or something else, can you find someone within that that account that can help you champion some of that information? Because yeah, some of the systems are so, I guess, they stratify information in such a very specific way that there's no way to, expand on anything, which may be at the detriment to, to that employer. But anyway.
Well, I think to your point too, Don, I mean, still the best way in on any of these systems is, do you know somebody at that company that you can send your resume to that can, on your behalf, email it to somebody that, it'll get eyes on? And I still think that's probably still one of the more successful ways of working, with application processes today. Someone made a comment in here about the hard copies, and they say we appreciate when people come to interviews with hard copies. So that's nice. That's still good to hear as well too. So we'll take this one last question here, but the question is, I'm not sure how if we have the right answer for this though, but how about companies asking for expected salary? How should we handle this during the online application and during interviews? So that tough question when they said, what are your salary expectations? What's a good way to answer that question?
So first question back to the questioner is the field itself only a numeric field?
Right.
Because, and the reason I ask that's probably important. I would tend to answer the question, something like, and again, this is a little ad-libbing, probably do a little bit better with a ChatGPT version, but of this. But the idea is, I'd appreciate if I'm the right candidate for your organization, I'd appreciate your best offer based on fair market value for the position and parity within your organization. If I was given the ability to write a text answer to that question, that's about what it would be. If it's a numeric number, that is a little more challenging, and I probably would say to make sure to know, your market value, because if I have to put in $100,000 and I can't put in 111,000 or however that goes, then that can be more challenging. So
and a lot of states these days too, actually by law now have to disclose the salary on the job postings, and you're seeing a lot more of that today. So you'll get an idea of what range they most likely have in budget. But there's 1,000 disclaimers if you read lower in their job description about that number that they're forced to put in there. And also use Glassdoor too, and get an idea of, the type of job, depending on where it is. If you're relocating, they can help you, find out what the range is for those, and then, with your skill set, where you fall in there. And a lot of those are required fields. You have to put something in. So. All right, I think we need to move forward. We have some more questions popping up. We will be sharing some contact information shortly, and maybe you can reach out directly and see if you can get some of those things answered. But I'd just like to take a few minutes right now and talk about some of the upcoming events SAMPS has going on in the near future. So the SAMPS North American Conference will take place in San Francisco Bay Area on December 5th, with a networking event on the evening of December 4th. This year's topic is revolving around innovation, and we are very fortunate to have Hamid Ghanadan from Linus as our keynote speaker. Registration is now open on samps.org for the conference. And if you've ever known of anyone, or if you've been to one of these are great opportunities to meet people in sales and marketing. And SAMPS's mission, as I said before, was about networking and personal development. And we pick a lot of topics that can help you grow as a sales and marketing professional, and the opportunity to talk with some of your peers and get their feedback as well too, and make new contacts. Additionally, too, SAMPS for the past 3 years has been acknowledging and celebrating the best and brightest in our industry, and we are proud to say that the SAMPS 4th annual SAMPS Awards for 2024 have been announced, and that we are taking nominations right now for Company of the Year, Best Innovation, Campaign, Sales Professional, Marketing Professional, Support Professional, Young Person, and Mentor. And then additionally, SAMPS recognizes an outstanding individual for their contribution in sales and marketing with the Lifetime Achievement Award. So right now you can head to samps.org for more information and to submit your nominations. And we expect to have that award ceremony in the first quarter of 2025. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, and especially our panelists for sharing their expertise. Feel free to reach out and connect with our panelists for more information and resources. Don has a QR code on here for a labor market report that his company has put together. And the information that we have here will also be available in our blog post next week on our post, if you don't have the time to capture it right now. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.